Hello and welcome to Opening the Package, Toy Collecting with Ian Brazy Cannon. This time I am doing a follow-up to my last one. My last one I talked about vintage G.I.Joe figures. This one we're going to talk about vintage G.I.Joe vehicles. Now, I think all in all, G.I.Joe is probably about the best toy line ever for vehicles and play sets. If you look at my opening credits, I have a Cobra Pterodome, which I'm not going to look into because I don't want to really mess that up. It's so big and awkward. But I am going to talk about some of my favorite G.I. Joe vehicles over the years. We'll start with vintage old stuff. This is the Vamp. This is the original basic G.I. Joe Jeep. The mold itself was used a few times. In this case, we've got I'm missing the gun and the gas tanks. However, and I'm also missing the steering wheel. Without that, though, it's still a decent little vehicle. Military-like, it has a little gun there that I don't think anyone ever made a big deal about. But it's a decent little Jeep vehicle. It works. It's fairly standard. Now they redid this with all this armor on it and missiles instead of a gun and a tan color. But this is the original way it looked. Now the driver for this was Clutch. Hemi Clutch. He's that one, yeah. So this is Clutch. He's the driver. He came with it. Basically, G.I. Joe vehicles were about half of them came with drivers or pilots, half of them didn't. Vamp came with Clutch. And the Vamp Mark II came with Clutch. Basically the same mold except for tan coloration. And he just sits right in there and he's ready to go. So then basically this is the style of the first year G.I. Joe stuff was all fairly basic military style. Nothing really that crazy. As per se, this is the flak, basic, simple little gun. Now this is one of the few things that didn't actually have wheels or anything. This is a stationary gun. Nothing too special about it really, but I always thought it was kind of cool. Decently done. This one did not come with a vehicle. As I said, about 50-50. Now, compared to that, this is, and I, for some weird reason, cannot remember the name of this gun. But this gun was actually made to be moved around, like on the back of the Vamp. On the back of the Vamp. See? So, you got a little hook there. And you can hook this one on the back. Oh, try that again. So it could pull it around. The mobile missile system also had the same type of thing. So you could hook that up to the back of the Vamp or the back of the G.I. Joe tank, which both had hooks. And through the years, they left that hook on various other vehicles for the same purpose, even though less and less of this stuff was made. My favorite they ever did was called the Whirlwind, which was two twirling guns. It was really cool. I don't have one of those right now, but they did it. I believe it was a third year one, but it was really cool. So, regretfully, like I said, don't have it. One of the coolest vehicles ever, the Dragonfly. Now, the Dragonfly Copper, which most of you will probably notice I do not have propellers on. Oh no, it's not even. Oh, that's not getting the spin. I do have the propeller for it, but it's obviously broken. Other than that, it's actually in real good shape. I have all the missiles, I have the gun, both side gun and the front gun. Condition-wise, it's in decent shape, if you look at it. Bit wear and tear. I do have this missile somewhere, I think it must have fallen. But this pilot wasn't quite Wild Bill, which I think once more my son took. Guy with the cowboy hat. No, that's Wakando. We do not seem to find a Wild Bill. Huh, weird. Well, the pilot for that was Wild Bill. And the figure's up here somewhere, but I can't seem to find him. Okay, we will live without it. So, now, first year, Cobra had nothing. They had 2 figures and then a mail away for the Cobra Commander. Then they did a series exclusive cardboard missile launcher set, but no vehicles or anything. So, second year, they had to try and make up for that. And, of course, they came out with what may be one of the most iconic G.I. Joe vehicles ever, the Cobra Hiss. This is a fairly standard tank. obviously. You have driver and a gunner plate. And of course this came out, which is always kind of cool. Don't worry about it. This is probably, I would say, the most redone vehicle. I can't guarantee that, but I have one version of it that was redone. Different color. You can see the muddy treads. This one I have driver for. I don't have the vintage driver. Now it's the exact same mold, but a different color. The original Hiss driver was all red, and interestingly enough, did not have a Cobra symbol like he did. Now I believe the name for this character is Rip It. Don't ask me why they decided when they re-released the Hiss to give a name to the driver instead of just calling him Hiss driver, but they did. And if I remember correctly, he was called Rip It. Now this officially isn't vintage. Once more, like I talked about in the last one, it's a comparison thing. So these guys were done more recently as part of a re-release and not part of the original line. But they've done red Hiss tanks of this style. I can't remember all the others. I've seen probably about half dozen versions of just this mold alone. Then they have the Hiss 2, which was a larger thing that had a big back where you can actually store figures in, and you had actually two places for drivers. Then they've done, I think it was called the Hiss 4 for a more modern one. Had snake-like stuff to it and did some funky things. But that's not vintage, so that's why I don't have one out to show you, because I decided to focus on vintage. Now, if you recall the figure one, we were talking about Zartan and his chameleon. Now, Zartan ended up leading a group called the Dreadnoughts. Now, the Dreadnoughts were originally had 3 of them. Then, in second year, they added a couple, and they added the vehicles. And this is one of my favorite vehicles ever, the Dreadnought Thunder Machine. Basically, it's a car that's been highly customized with a jet engine on the back, Gatling guns on the front, armor. Now, one thing I always thought was cool is this easily comes off. So I remember always playing with it and, oh my god, they got damaged. And, I always thought that was cool. The driver for this is Thrasher, which I think I have somewhere, but I didn't bring him up, so I can't show him to you. But I always thought this was such a cool vehicle. Now, of course, this has a Cobra symbol, but the Dreadnoughts themselves are not necessarily Cobra. They just worked for Cobra, like hired mercenaries. So I always found it kind of annoying when they try and give the Dreadnoughts a Cobra symbol, because that didn't necessarily make sense. While yes, they worked for Cobra and were often fighting alongside them, they were not necessarily Cobra soldiers. They were independent. Now, after the Thunder Machine, they started doing Dreadnought vehicles regularly, including another cool one, the Dreadnought Motorbike. You got missiles on it. They love putting missiles on all sorts of things that didn't make sense to have missiles, but you got missiles there. You got the gun on the back. This moves independently. Pretty cool bike. And basically, after a point, you could actually get all your Dreadnoughts on a vehicle and have a whole army driving down the road, army of Dreadnoughts. I always thought that was so cool. So I was a fan of the Dreadnoughts, and you actually get the Dreadnought symbol, which is really cool. And so I kind of wish they would have done more with them, to tell you the truth, but there's only so much they're going to do. Now, this is the Cobra Water Moccasin. Basically the first boat they released for Cobra. This one's in fairly good shape. I have a broken piece back here, and the only piece I'm missing is a window piece that slips on right there. I actually have the weird little torpedo thing that comes off its back, which never quite made sense. I think this is the most common lost piece. This one's in good shape. You can see the blades spin. Not too good, but they spin. This is a 30-year-old toy. It's not going to be in the best of shape. The pilot for this was Copperhead, which is another one I think I do have downstairs somewhere. I didn't bring him up regretfully. Now, the vehicle, the G.I.Joe equivalent of this that came out the same year is the G.I.Joe Whale, which I've had at one time, and it is probably my favorite G.I. Joe vehicle ever. It's also known as the Hovercraft. It is huge. It has so much to it. I wish I had one now because it is really a massive, cool thing. Regretfully, it was one that never got a re-release. The water moccasin itself, they've redone this a few times. Remolded, same basic mold, added stuff to it, and of course, with the new nowadays thing where you have to put huge missile launchers everywhere, you can actually find this with absurd weapons that don't make any sense. They don't make anything this simple. I mean, when they release any kind of vehicle now, it has to have so much junk added to it. I regret them doing that because, honestly, simple stuff is often the best, if you ask me. Let's see what else I got for treasures. Now, this one I never had the original of. This was a re-release. It was, wow, I can't remember the original name of it right now, so that's how awake I am. This is also one that's been commonly redone. It's a basic dune buggy. The original gun on it was not a missile launcher. Here it is a missile launcher, but once more, as I was saying, they love sticking missile launchers and everything nowadays. So this really isn't vintage, because this was a more recent re-release when they were trying to bring it back and stuff. But I'm showing off a few like that just because I want to. But the original one of these was green and came out 4th year. The driver was who was the driver? It did come with a driver. It's always come with a driver. Interestingly enough, this one came with, I think, Pathfinder, which was really kind of odd, I thought. A fairly insignificant character. I believe it originally came with crankcase. That sounds right. And I don't think I've ever had a crankcase. But this is the vehicle. Fairly standard. And I think I will leave it with that for vehicles, as my storage of the vehicles have not been the best, so the vehicles I'd like to show are really in bad shape. Some of my favorites, like the Skyhawk. My original Skyhawk is broken more than it should have been, and I think it's because it got smashed when some boxes got moved around. So one thing I definitely would recommend is, figuring out better ways to take care of your vehicles than I did. You saw my Dragonfly, which I think this happened after I got it, so it's my fault once more storage-wise. It can get real tricky trying to store some of these things that have odd pieces. So, recommendation to anyone, take care of your G.I. Joe vehicles. They're cool stuff, and no toy line has done anywhere near as much. I mean, the G.I. Joe toy line, the original, every year had this awesome selection of vehicles and playsets that you don't get anymore. And it really saddens me, because that was one of the coolest things about the line, is to have so many of these different vehicles that you could have and really make these grand adventures. And now they don't do that. And play sets, I'm definitely going to have to do one of these on play sets, because I love play sets, and they don't do play sets anymore. I don't know why. I can reminisce and go back, but then that gets a bit corny. So, but that is all for my tribute to vintage G.I. Joe vehicles from the 80s, which I so wish that they brought back more of nowadays. So, thank you for watching. As always, here is my email, opentpackage@gmail.com. Send me comments and stuff if you feel like it. So, and that will be it for this episode. Thank you for watching.